Hello, everybody. Byron here. Welcome to a Who the Hell Asked special where Slade and friends will talk about Pokemon for who knows how long. How are you doing, Slade?
Doing pretty good, Byron. So Byron came up to me with this interesting idea because we had the Pokemon trailer earlier this week. On top of it wasn't the strongest news week overall for games. I mean, we had the Ubisoft Forward and
Which
whatnot,
was
and
fucking trash, but I'll mention that when we do Nintendo stuff potentially this week.
what's the
We'll see.
matter, Byron? I thought you'd love Rayman being in, the new Mario and Rabbids
I'll talk
game.
about that when we do Nintendo stuff later.
Alrighty, so we're just going to talk about Pokemon in general. I have two very fun and friendly guests with me. Steeler is a great friend of mine. He's part of the Mario Party TV group. They do a lot of games over on Twitch and YouTube. Say hello, Sam.
Hey, hey.
And
It's glad to be
on
here.
the other side, we have Lumi, who's been on the show previously before. Hello, Lumi.
Going, guys? Yeah, sounds like we're in a boxing match, like fighting off against each other.
Oh yeah, so without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about that trailer that dropped earlier this week. I gotta say, the more I see out of this game, the more I like the Pokemon and the open world specifically, but there isn't really anything in terms of accessibility being shown. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm kind of on board with you. It does look exciting, and I think almost all of the new Pokemon designs have really hit it out of the park. Like, I can't think of a single one that I actively dislike. And to me, like the games, at the end of the day, they're about the Pokemon themselves. So, um, I think it's a really good start, but we're so close to the release. I don't think we're going to get that much more information before it comes out.
Yeah, that is true. With this already being in September, I feel like this year is really fun by game being about 2 months out. Is there any particular Pokemon you're looking forward to, Lumi?
My gosh, boy, is there. So, Saraledge is gonna sound basic. It's probably my favorite of the batch right now because I do love me a Fire Knight that reminds me of Ignites from Yu-Gi-Oh!
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah, that's actually the one I'm most excited for, too. I mean, people who know me personally, I'm kind of a bit of a sword junkie, so, just seeing a fire sword Pokemon running around is always super duper cool.
Also,
but,
damn, the deep cut reference.
I mean, you got
Yeah.
your boy.
That's true.
No, and honestly, I see a lot of people, they've called him out for being kind of like either Digimon or Mega Man boss rejects, but I love them. I love Ceruledge, and I like, what's the other one called? Armorogue? A bit less, but I still like him. Steeler, what is the Pokemon you're looking forward to seeing?
That's been officially revealed because some of
Yeah.
the leaks that are floating around are kind of crazy.
Oh, yeah,
But,
I've heard a couple of things about that myself personally.
yeah. I'll say the starters. I really like all the starters, and um, that's a big factor in whether I like the beginning of the game, is whether I enjoy the selection of starters. And I could pick all three, honestly, at least as of right now, but we don't know the final evolutions, so we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, will Sprigatito end up being bipedal again? I've seen the
for
memes of
sure.
like the duct tape the feet to the ground.
I honestly don't get why people are so obsessed over whether or not a Pokemon remains bipedal or not.
I think they just want
Or
an
quadrupedal, I
evolution.
guess.
I think Slade, they just want an evolution that's just not a bipedal. Finally, I think
is
that's
true.
people's obsession.
I do think Sword and Shield kind of went off the deep end a little bit with that. And then, with the previous titles before that was Sun and Moon, 2 out of 3 of them were bipedal, and then I'm trying to remember if I'm wrong. Were all of them bipedal and X and Y?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, Greninja walks on all fours, I guess,
But it's more of like a
he's-
crouch, like a stance.
yeah, he's supposed to be a
yeah,
ninja. So yeah.
he's bipedal.
Yeah. So it has
Um,
been a while since we've seen like majority quadrupedal Pokemon.
Yeah, my take on that is, I think people are getting kind of tired of like the humanoid bipedal and kind of thirst trappy kind of Pokemon designs, and they want to
Yeah.
see more like animalistic,
They want
natural
more
kind of
feral.
designs. Which I'm on board with that. But as long as it's cool either way, it's fine. Like I like Incineroar, he's fine. He's bipedal and he started out as a cat, you know.
Yeah, I don't
But
have any problems with the center. I actually thought the whole wrestling aesthetic was pretty cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
What do you think, Lumi?
So on this whole stance, I personally would like to see one that's a little more feral, that's not like as human-like, because it's nice, but it's kind of running its course. We're seeing a lot more, like you said in Sword of Shield, it was really oversaturated, but on this end, I guess it'd be kind of refreshing to see maybe one or two by chance. I'm not going to complain if there's not, but either way.
Yeah, I'm about to say, like, for me, I don't mind if, like, they're bipedal as long as the Pokemon are cool. So, like, I can't even pronounce the grass starter's name. I fucking butcher it every time.
Sprigatito?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sprigatito. Yeah.
Sprigatita. If it's, like, holding a sword or something, I would be, like, hella down for that.
Of course
guys
you
know
would
me.
be. You like anything with a sword. You're a Fire Emblem fan, Slade.
I mean, that's just... Fire Emblem has very little to do with why I like swords in general. But, yeah, no, I think, in terms of what we know for the starters right now, I think it's legitimately a really hard choice, which, for
Yeah.
me, I feel like
Yeah.
that's where Sword and Shield was kind of lacking, because, like, I still felt like the Sword and Shield starters were a hard choice, but for the opposite reason, that I didn't really like any of them.
I agree. I haven't really liked a set of starters since Gen 4, or at least felt like a really strong attachment to any of them at all. And I don't know if that's just because I'm a boomer or what, but this Gen 8 completely changed that. I love Quaxley. I love Sprigatito. Like, I would take them in almost any other gen. And then Fuecoco's like, all right to me. Not my least favorite of the three, but still really solid.
But to say I'm a Fuecoco stan, so I won't stand for that.
I do like me some Fuecoco.
Okay, so going into some more details about it, there's been a lot of talk about, how scaling works in the game and whatnot. Like, it seems like from what I've heard, they're taking like a Xenoblade approach where there isn't any level scaling, but like you could go somewhere and the Pokemon are like 60 to 80 levels higher than you off the bat. What do you guys think about that?
Let's play who's catching the level 60 first. I can honestly see people just trying to speed run, going to like the higher levels, trying to see how fast they can catch a Pokemon and speed through the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Sword and Shield gated how high you could catch Pokemon based on your gym badges. I wouldn't be surprised if they do the same thing, but they still let you like explore out there. Which, if they do that, that's no bueno. That's just lame.
No, that's like the worst possible outcome for me.
Yeah.
Because like the thing is, if you allow people to explore like the high level areas, but you don't let them catch any of the Pokemon or whatever like that, then what's the point?
What's
Yeah,
the
exactly.
point?
What's the point?
Like that's one thing I actually enjoy about some RPG series. That kind of lets you run wherever, right off the bat. Like, sure, you're probably significantly weaker than the enemies. You're probably gonna get like one tapped by them or something. But you could like grind and like actually like fight those enemies and end up being like successful and stuff like that.
Yeah, like look at
Gatekeeping the Pokemon you catch I've never been a fan of that idea. That's one of the reasons why I didn't like the wild area in Sword and Shield.
Mm-hmm.
But
look at
that
Breath
would
of the
definitely be
Wild,
the worst
though.
timeline.
Yeah, well, look at Breath of the Wild. You could technically beat Ganon. Like, you could just go to Ganon, Are you going to get your ass kicked? Absolutely. But you could. You could try to beat Ganon immediately.
Oh yeah, and I think that's one of the things where like just because you're able to complete the game in 2 minutes doesn't take away from how good the game is overall.
Right.
So I'm hoping this game has a pretty similar approach. I don't think they would be pushing the open world, like truly open world narrative so hard if they're going to gatekeep Pokemon you're going to catch. But then again, it's Game Freak, so who really knows?
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I am really disappointed that the gyms don't level scale though, because I mean, you're still going to have a general progression route that you're kind of encouraged to take,
Yeah.
unless you're able to, catch something like way over leveled at the very beginning, and then you
Yeah.
can kind of do whatever you want.
Well, my speculation was because there's 3 separate stories. Because like they have the typical like story involves an evil team, one story involves the gym challenge, and then one story is something else, probably involving the legendaries or something, but nobody really knows at this point.
Yeah.
I think the progression of the 3 different stories are going to kind of take you all over the map to the point to where you'll be able to progress naturally through levels without how to explain it. So, like, you could go to, like, what would be an end game town for the gym leader challenge, but it would be an early game town for, like, one of the 2 stories. You know what I mean?
Like, depending on what story you go to, you have different types of scaling per se that happen.
See, that's how I thought they were going to approach it when they initially announced that the stories would be completely separate and you could do them in any order. Because otherwise, that would be right. We would still have linear we would still have linear progression, and the gameplay would be roughly the same outside of who feels quirky and wants to go towards the end immediately.
For sure.
All right. So going on to, I guess since we're talking about progression and scaling and whatnot, let's go ahead and talk about something that's been a bit of a topic of conversation for the past few years that I think we could get some interesting nuance here. XP share has been a hotly debated topic since X and Y, honestly. When they removed the ability, or they added XP, like the current form of XP share. And was it Gen 7 that removed the toggle for XP share? I honestly can't remember.
I think it was 8. 8's the first one.
Okay, you might be right.
I know for a fact it didn't have it.
But,
yeah, because Let's Go didn't have a toggle. And yeah, I remember the whole party leveling. So yeah, Let's Go and Sword and Shield were the first ones with it.
So I came across a Reddit thread where the title of the Reddit thread goes, EXP share isn't the issue, but we play these games like XP is still a rare commodity. And despite disagreeing with not just the title, but some of their arguments, I do kind of agree that EXP share isn't the issue. So my take on EXP share is that all it really does is just remove the grind that I think the earlier games like RBY, Crystal, the Generation 3 games and whatnot, kind of make you feel like you have to do in a lot of instances, especially if you're not like, if you're playing something like a Nuzlocke or, gameplay where you're trying to use quite a bit of Pokemon and whatnot, you're not trying to stick to the same 3 or 4 to 6 Pokemon. So, I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
So, on that one, I guess there are very few, and I say this sparingly because I'm not really hearing many people on the casual side that are complaining about this too much. If it's anyone, it's more people that are more catered to like challenges and that type of thing.
Yeah, like Nuzlockers.
Yeah. And like to them, I understand because you've been playing the games for a while, you have like the way you want to play the game, which is understandable. and it makes it harder on them. So I understand their concern and their issue, but at the same time, as there have been many discussions before, the company is catering towards the casual marketplace a lot because the casual is what's gonna sell the business.
Yeah, that is
And
true. I think, an interesting point is like the games sell more than 10 to 15 million units. And God knows, like, the people who like hardcore Nuzlocke or play Pokemon competitively or not are probably an extreme minority of those 10 to 15 million people that buy every unit.
Mhm.
I don't know, Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's absolutely true. Um, I do like to play with a challenge, and I Nuzlocke, and I plan on doing that with every generation. Um, but I mean, I like it. When I was playing through Sword and Shield, I liked it, but because it kind of introduced a different kind of challenge, and it was a little bit more interesting. Like generally in the older Pokemon games, it was like, okay, can I get through this grind without accidentally fainting to a wild Pokemon, which is super repetitive, not really that interesting. It's just like a tedious kind of like um, challenge of your mental fortitude in a way, and like making
Yeah.
sure that you're still paying attention the whole time you're doing that. And that's it. When I was playing Sword and Shield, because I like to play where like I cap my levels to whatever the next gym leader's Pokemon are. If I kept the same team of 6 in my party, I noticed very quickly that I would very easily over level and I'd get too strong. I think that's where a lot of people complain is like, well, it makes the games too easy. And it can if you're just soaking up experience on the same Pokemon all game. But I liked it because then it encouraged me to actually swap out members of my team frequently, and they all ended up becoming pretty useful because I didn't have to go through that monotonous grind for each individual Pokemon because they're all leveling at the same time. So I think it's a good thing. I think it'd be nice to have a toggle. I think that's what most people complain about. It's just like, if you want to go back to that style, like why not? Um, so it is kind of a weird decision to not even let you have the option, but I get that. I guess they just want to make sure the casuals don't accidentally make the game way more tedious for themselves.
Yeah, I guess I kind of get that. And I definitely feel you on your point where, it kind of encourages you if you're trying to adhere to a strict level cap to swap between, multiple Pokemon that otherwise you wouldn't normally use. So,
Yeah.
like, I feel like the MO for the majority of casual Pokemon play is you find 3 or 4 Pokemon you really like, kind of early to the mid game, and
Hmm.
then you kind of just stick with them throughout like the entirety of the game. And there isn't a whole lot of, oh, what if I find this Pokemon later on and whatnot. At that point, it's probably going to be 20 to 30 levels under leveled, and you would have to invest a significant amount of time to like train it up to get it caught up with everything that's monotonous. So that's one thing I really do enjoy about EXP share. That's why I agree with the point that it isn't the issue per se. But I would actually argue that I feel like the majority of casual players, especially when you play through a Pokemon game the first time, they don't necessarily, go through lots of Pokemon and swap through them. I feel like they also tend to gravitate towards finding their like 3 or 4 Pokemon that they've caught early that they really like. And then they end up being kind of like over level. Because the thing is, when I play through a Pokemon game, I guess I'm looking more for an RPG kind of experience instead of like, because I know Pokemon's very unique in terms of like what it is, in terms of like turn-based RPGs and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think overall, the reason why, even when I'm casually playing through a Pokemon game, the reason why I wish that, they'd maintained the fact that it was a toggle is because, like, outside of like understanding and knowing that really I should just swap between multiple Pokemon. Whatnot. Maybe I want to use the same 3 or 4, and I don't want to be over leveled at the same time. It's kind of like having my cake and eating it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that. I think the games would benefit a lot from just introducing an option to cap your level to the next gym, or if you really want to go like hardcore route, is just the
Like no
trainers
excuse.
mirror your levels to a certain extent, to where like rando youngster trainers are always like only 2 levels lower than you, but still close enough that it's like, all right, you got a challenge on your hands. And then ace trainers are always like 1 level higher than you, things like that. If you want to do like a hard mode kind of
So
thing.
like level scaling, yeah.
Yeah, but some kind of option where like the game can adjust levels automatically depending on what you're doing would completely solve any of the issues people have.
But you would think in terms of like what Pokemon's doing now with the game being truly open world, you could go everywhere in any order. I think that's why people are like really upset that there isn't level scaling. But then again, I still have the mindset that they're probably going to counteract that with the way the 3 stories are set up. So
Hopefully.
you'd hope so, but then again, you can't ever be too sure with
Nah,
Game Freak at
you
this
can't
point.
expect too much out of Game Freak. Not when it comes to
Yeah.
like really niche, like little game design decisions like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the next thing on our palliative conversations. Competitive Pokemon. So, one thing that I really enjoyed about Sword and Shield that I felt like they did a really good job at was introduce a lot of things that made grinding for competitive Pokemon a lot easier, such as bottle caps, the EVs and IVs. They removed the cap that you could get for the protein and other items.
Oh yeah. God, I wish I had
They
that in Gen 1.
also, infinite use TMs, but the really powerful ones they made into records that you could farm, which was really cool. The mints to change your Pokemon's natures and whatnot was also another fantastic thing. I think Sword and Shield did an absolutely fantastic job of removing most, not all, but most of the grind required to get competitive Pokemon. But I feel like they fell short in a couple of areas. Number one, the main thing is like, I don't have a problem with breeding Pokemon for egg moves. I think that's actually something that should stay. But there's still a degree of breeding required for a lot of Pokemon, especially if you're trying to, underspeed things for Trick Room and like other setups that you're trying to do for your bulkier but slower Pokemon. And that's not even going into the fact that there's still event Pokemon that have unique moves that are only available for a limited time period. So ultimately, this leads to people hacking, and Byron pulled up a pretty interesting tweet that we were talking about the other day.
Yes. So, Twitter user Kafotics, I hope I said that username correctly, got 250 recent rental teams and analyzed that 200 out of the 254 of them, only 111 of them, aka 44% of teams, were VGC legal. So 66% of teams are hacking.
And that's just rental teams that are being included online from the Pokemon World Championships. Obviously, there's probably a hell of a lot more than that going on, but let's discuss this a bit. So, guys, why does hacking happen in competitive Pokemon?
Because Pokemon sucks.
That's
Pokemon
really the nitty
sucks.
gritty of it.
Acquiring Pokemon sucks. If you're trying to play competitively and you have to have all flawless IVs with the correct nature, and you got to farm, say, held items or you got to acquire the money or the resources to get all the proteins and the stat enhancing items that you need. Like it's just so much work. And depending on what your team is, the Pokemon you might need might have been released like 2 generations ago. So you're gonna need to have that game and that console and all the transportation methods that you have to connect it between games to transfer up to the current generation. It's a lot of work, and I mean, that's just the beginning of it. So I get why people hack. It's unfortunate, and they've done a lot in Gen 8 to like kind of improve on that and make it easier to get like actually viable Pokemon that you can battle with, but it's still not enough. Like honestly, they just need to have like a Pokemon Showdown mode where you just type in or choose what you want to battle with, and it's just a rental that you just have that's flawless, and you can go at it. Because requiring you to spend hundreds of hours on the games to be competitive, and that's hundreds of hours spent not battling or not practicing, just acquiring the resources and the Pokemon you need to even start is it's just not really feasible.
Yeah, and you gotta RNG manipulate some shit, don't you?
Yeah, which I've done a little
Accessibility.
bit of that, but it's not. It's there's a lot that goes into that too. So it takes a lot of work, no matter what.
Lumi, what are your
Yeah,
thoughts, bud?
I was about to say because like when you're talking like this, Pokemon, the people who really win at Pokemon are not the smartest people. They might not be the most talented people, but they are the most patient people I know because they have to. They have to. I'll just put it this way. So in these 2 games, Sword and Shield, whenever all of the legendaries were released and we were able to use them in VGC, if you need a legendary and you see how the current meta is going, the meta is extremely fast paced. It's go go go, burst burst burst. You're gonna start off and you're gonna think, maybe I should follow the meta right now and get a bursty legendary. So you want like a Groudon that's like extremely fast, has like Eruption or Earthquake, Precipice Blades, and can just sweep through everything. And later on, the meta starts slowing down because it took control of the metagame. Well, you already caught your Groudon, and if you're doing this legitimately, you have to restart your game, go all the way through it again, and then on top of that, keep resetting for that Groudon after you had to do all of that the first time just to stay with the fast meta. And by the time you've done that, you might even miss out on the next meta. So just doing all that, you're missing out on what you need in battles just to try and get your team situated. And then you'll again have that point where when you finally are battling, you have to test your team and make sure it makes a lot of sense. But because you're taking so much time just trying to get your team together, you hardly have any time to actually test it, make sure everything's okay. And if you're doing this legitimately, you might just have to risk it all just because you don't have the experience with your team.
There's actually a pretty fantastic example that you brought up where you cut a Groudon and then like maybe the meta specifically favors, that it's supposed to be like fast and really hard hitting and whatnot. Actually, in Generation 5, Thundurus was a fantastic example of this because Thundurus, the way people ran the Pokemon was that it was a very fast, hard hitting kind of sweeper Pokemon. But in Worlds, I think it was the first year that restricted Pokemon were allowed. People actually started running bulkier support Thunduruses with Prankster and whatnot to take advantage of, it's already very powerful, speed, special attack, and all that, but added that extra bulk it needed to become like a really big nuisance. And for anybody who already had a Thundurus before that point, before that like meta decision was discovered, you would have to restart your game, and then you would have to farm a Thundurus that was obviously, IV'd and spec'd out to where it could be not only just bulkier, but like it would also have to be able to have the correct nature and whatnot to survive specific moves and whatnot. And long story short, ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, because like if you think about like the casual playthrough of Black and White or Black and White 2, right? You would argue from beginning to end, if you 100% optimized absolutely everything, it would take you about 10 hours to reach the post game where you could catch the genies. Give or take. Probably being a little bit generous or not being generous enough, but that is a whole ass day. And then you encounter your Thunderous or whatever, and it's not the correct one that you need in terms of like its IVs or nature or anything like that. So then you have to start resetting. And later Pokemon games actually hard lock the legendaries to like what their IVs and ability and all that is before you create or right after you create your save file. So some legendaries say you have to farm. You literally, if you don't get the right one, you have to start a brand new save file again, and you just keep doing it until you get the correct one. Again, nobody has time for that. So, yeah, I'm completely with you guys. I feel like, again, Sword Shield did some fantastic things and whatnot in terms of like accessibility, but like they need to go further. In fact, I would even go as far as saying that, honestly speaking, they need to just fucking add sliders to every Pokemon.
Yeah, like rentals, like yeah, obviously not necessarily for the main campaign or to trade, but specifically for like playing online, just let you customize whatever the fuck you want. Because come on, like it's ridiculous the amount of work that you have to put into it. Um, yeah, but that's never gonna happen because they've always been very like picky about like making sure they're protecting the integrity of like scarcity of Pokemon and things like that. Like it gives you a reason to like buy 2 copies and
Oh
grind through
yeah,
the
that
games because you want both cover legendaries or whatever. So there's a profit incentive there. There's a, historical precedent of them just wanting to act like these Pokemon are sacred little things that can't be duplicated. And this is just something that if anyone wants to take Pokemon seriously, you're just gonna have to deal with it. You're gonna have to cheat. You're gonna have a friend that gives you what you need. Because at the end of the day, like you can trade for Pokemon. At the end of the day, to you as a player, what is the difference if you hack the Pokemon in or if a friend that gets it legitimately trades it to you? Either way, you did nothing to earn it, right?
Yeah.
So, but people are okay, I assume, with getting traded Pokemon that are competitively viable. So clearly, it's not really about the time saving factor of it. They just care about whether or not it's cheating and manipulating the game, which totally fair. I get why people do not like that, but it is what it is.
yeah. To quote the title of a YouTube video by YouTuber I'm a Blissy, competitive Pokemon is a full-time job if you don't cheat.
Well, and honestly, like when we talk about the aspect of quote unquote cheating, because let's really get like into the morality of this.
Yeah.
Because like 90% of games are still going to be decided. Actually, no, I'm actually going to go further. 100% of games are still going to be decided on who makes the correct reads in the battle, who has the right Pokemon in the lineup, who fucking makes the correct, swap ins, uses the correct moves, and all that. The only thing you're doing by like hacking your Pokemon is just removing all of the monotonous grind. That's it.
Yeah, and
That's
like
literally it.
Game Freak and Pokemon Company don't seem to really care.
Okay, so interesting comparison here. This literally ties into experience share so much more than people think. Because you can compare this with experience share, or in the Nuzlocking version, you can compare this to speeding up or hacking in Lucky Eggs. Or just like
Yeah.
skipping grinding with rare candies. It's literally the exact same thing.
And that's why a lot of people, when they like Nuzlocke a lot of games and whatnot, they just hack in billions of rare candies. It's just to remove the grind. Like
Like
I
either
get
way,
like for
the
Nuzlocke, you could
integrity.
argue that like you could lose a Pokemon while you're grinding.
Right.
And maybe that's a little bit more black and white than the whole competitive Pokemon hacking them in issue. But like to me, where I would draw the line with hacks is if a Pokemon gets a new move that like it's not normally supposed to have. That causes it to like completely break the game. That's where I would be like, yeah, that's just outright cheating. But I just don't see removing hundreds of thousands of hours of grinding as cheating. That's just me personally.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I think we're just about, covering through anything. Is there anything you two wanted to discuss in general?
Pokemon Unite sucks.
Actually, let's talk a bit about Unite. You know what? We're all three
God.
Unite enthusiasts.
I've been falling off the
Clefable.
wagon hard, man. I have a hard time finding the motivation to turn that game on.
I'm literally the same boat right now.
Played it either.
I do like the new map and whatnot. There's some bugs that they need to work on, and obviously there's a lot of balancing things they need to do. I think the decision to, what's the word? Standardize all the roles, Unite, durations, and what they do and whatnot was a terrible choice. I think a lot of Pokemon, like Charizard, for instance, really needed the longer uptime of the seismic tosses, flame breath duration afterwards, to where standardizing it with the rest of the all-rounders is just straight up nothing but a nerf. It's terrible.
So it's less than it was before for Charizard?
Yes, it's I think it's like 1.5 seconds less or something like that. I'm going to get the exact numbers, but long story short, it's just things like that where like I feel like the role isn't really that important.
It's really not. Wigglytuff used to be the best defender.
Yeah.
She's a supporter by the game's standards, so...
Yeah, and with that line of logic, I feel like the idea to group up Pokemon into a bunch of categories and then balance them that way, instead of balancing them individually like they should be, is just lazy. And not only that it's lazy, I also think it's bad.
Yeah, I like the nuance. I prefer a nuanced take to where, each Unite does a slightly different thing and it's catered towards that Pokemon's move sets and everything. Because if you're just looking at, say, defenders, like Slowbro is very, very different from Blastoise.
Yes.
But now their Unites, I presume, have the same buff, and their buffs last the exact same amount of time. Like,
it's also kind of like comparing them with Crustle, who has a defender ult, but like a full go on, get in your face.
Yep, but because the game categorizes them as such, all three of them have the same Unite buffs.
Yeah, it's just things like that that kind of like grind my gears in general with Unite. I do think right now, though, in terms of like the Pokemon they're adding, they are hitting on all cylinders in terms of not just fan service. Fan service is probably the one thing they're really doing well at, but also getting the weird and interesting unique choices where I think they're doing a good job with roster. It's just the everything else that they need help with. Like, for example, I think every Pokemon since Glaceon has been just a hit. Like Glaceon, Buzzwole, Mew, Tyranitar, Scizor. Those are all fan favorite, like excellent Pokemon. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not.
Easy.
But then, like, you also get interesting and unique Pokemon, like with Mew with the 6 moves, though. Really, I feel like it's just Solar Beam and passive abuse. I don't know if you guys seen any videos on Mew. It's nuts. It's broken.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of, what's her face in League of Legends? Not Lux, but the other Star Girl with the, she teleports backwards with, like, the projectile that winds up and then flies at them. She was really broken for, like, a straight year before they nerfed her into the ground.
She must be, like, a newer champion.
Zoe.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. That's what Mew reminds me of, because, like, what you do is you activate Mew's passive, get as far away from the fucking enemy Pokemon as possible, and it's just nuclear. It's so dumb. Like, I honestly don't know what the hell they were thinking with that thing. But then you got other Pokemon like Dodrio and whatnot, who none of us would have saw coming like a mile away. But like, I feel like with it being a hyper mobile Pokemon that kind of just shoves other Pokemon around, it has a very unique and interesting kit. To where like, I love the Dodrio edition. Like,
I
I
agree.
think it's fantastic. So
Super
like,
cool.
Can I just run, shove things? That's all I want to do. Dodrio just does it.
yeah, it just runs around and just shoves things around and walks back out, comes back in when it wants to. It's great. It's honestly like when you think of Speedster, that's generally what you think a Speedster would do. So like, I don't know. Again, Pokemon Unite, they seem to hit on a lot of things, but there's quite a few misses too.
Yeah, but if we want to think about it, in terms of a MOBA, I don't have that much experience with the genre, just with League. But if you look at season 1 of League compared to even season 3, 4, 5, like it got very, very polished as time went on, and we're still within. We just finished the first year of Unite, so I have no doubt the game's going to look very, very different in the future, as long as it keeps growing and is still supported by the devs. But there's certain patches that are just rough, man. Like that Duraludon patch.
Yeah.
God, that was a rough time. What else?
Honestly, T-Tar last patch, even though I
T-Tar,
feel like there
God.
is counterplay, but like
It's
that's not gonna improve your solo queue gameplay just because teams of
yes.
5 know how to counter a T-Tar. Like,
The bummer is just like the quality of players in the game is just a MOBA kind of lives and dies on the player base, and I think the Unite player base is just still so new to the game and the genre, and they don't know what they're doing. It just makes it so difficult to play when you really are trying to take the game somewhat seriously. And that's honestly the biggest problem I have with the game. And I don't know. I don't know when that's going to change or if it ever will, but there's not really much you can do about it.
I'm with you there. I think matchmaking, honestly, is probably its biggest problem for me as well. It's why I don't feel
Mhm.
motivated to boot up the game either. There's nothing worse than like you climb really high, like master rank or something. Like you get 1600 plus to get like the cool little sticker or whatever like that, and then you go even higher than that to like 2000, 2100, 2200 plus whatever, and you still get those players that never rotate to any objectives. You still get players that just run head first into like an enemy team, like they have no idea what the fuck they're doing and stuff like that. And it honestly just feels like your skill gets leveraged against you
Yes.
whenever like you start to have like a winning streak or something like that. They
For
start
sure.
putting like some of the game's worst players on your team and say, okay, you're good, you're gonna carry. And it's just it's brutal.
Yeah,
It
it's a
doesn't get
game
any
that you
better the
can't
higher
really
you go.
carry. Like
Yeah. Like
the design of like, especially when it was Zapdos, the design of the game was like almost explicitly anti-carry to not let you build an early lead and just let everyone else ride on your back.
yeah.
So
That's something I feel like the new map does a much better job with. In fact,
yeah,
I think out of the hundreds of games I've played on the new map, I have only gotten Rayquaza like maybe 10 times total,
wow.
but I still win the majority of the games. So, like, that's how you know they fixed the whole 50-50 coin flip fucking thing at the end.
Yeah, like there's more skill, so you can actually counterplay Rayquaza a lot better
Yeah.
than just hoping if you have Zapdos, you just counter push.
Yeah. That being said, that doesn't mean there's no element of objective equals win game. I feel like Reggie Lecky's a little bit too strong. Because, like, you grab that, you basically, as long as your team is intelligent enough to know that Reggie Lecky's really strong and you group with it, then you really can't stop it from being shoved in.
Interesting. So it's a
But
super buffed Rotom.
oh, it's more than super buffed Rotom. Like, imagine like you have a Rotom that will win every single one-on-one with any Pokemon, regardless,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
it does that much damage. And then
Mhm.
the reason why it's amazing in team fights is because it has not just a lot of like AoE damage and whatnot that actually really hurts, but it also has like wide what's that Thunder Cage move? I think it's literally called Thunder Cage, where it literally acts like as a 5-man stun, and that stun lasts a really long time. You
Oh
just straight up win
god.
fights with it.
Yeah.
It's really good. So like people have kind of figured out that like if you push with the Reggie, then you're going to get whatever goal you're pushing it on, unless like either you're hilariously underleveled, which it's Pokemon Unite, you really shouldn't be, or like straight up, you just get significantly outplayed. Which at that point, the only thing you do is tip your hat to the other team for the outplay. But I don't know. Like I said, I feel like this Unite patch is really good in a lot of areas, and then just falls significantly flat in others. But I do enjoy it overall.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's going to be everything for this podcast.
So, one last thing I think that's
Uh-huh.
important. Obviously, what are y'all's hopes for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and thoughts on the new stuff that we... Oh wait, yeah, I think we already covered the new stuff, but
Yeah.
what are
So
y'all's
hopes.
hopes and thoughts and expectations for Scarlet and Violet? And I don't know, talk about Legends Arceus if you guys want as well. Throw that in.
I know Sam's got some takes on Legends Arceus.
Ooh, I want to hear those.
I don't like that game.
We're out of the honeymoon phase, so I think honestly now's the best time. You know what? Let's talk a little bit about Legends Arceus. I think for what it was and for what it is now, I think it's a game with an excellent premise
Yes.
that's executed somewhat terribly.
Yes. Absolutely. I was so excited for it. I was like, wow, this is like something new and different. Like I just got to try it out and see what's going on. And it just feels super duper duper shallow, and it feels like, which this has kind of been alluded to as far as like development times go and everything. It just seems like it was a beta for like them moving further in the open world direction. Um,
Exact
so
words I describe it, a beta for sure.
yeah, I don't know. It's just like the way you interact with the Pokemon. Like the whole point of it is like, okay, now you can interact with the Pokemon in real time in the overworld, and they're just standing there waiting for you. It's like this is not
Yes.
realistic at all. Why aren't they like hiding underground? Why aren't they like, hiding in trees? I guess they are sometimes, you can get Burmese and stuff there, but like more of that, less of them just literally walking around. I'd love to see like actual like little families of Pokemon, like
Yeah,
They had an instance
more
with Ursa.
clearly
Yeah. No,
communicating
I'm
that they are
completely
in their
with you.
natural habitat and not just sitting around waiting for you to find them, because that's what it comes across as, and it's extremely boring and repetitive. I still have not beaten the game because it just that gameplay loop of just lobbing pokeballs at stuff got so old and so uninteresting, not to mention the fact that like it's so easy to catch Pokemon now, and you catch so many that you and battles are so scarce, you really don't have any incentive at all to like try and raise a good team, because you're just catching so much shit and you're rarely ever fighting anything that it doesn't matter how strong your team is. Like just use whatever most recent stuff you got and go. Like I don't know. Kind of a bummer.
Battles being scarce was probably my number one issue at the game. I also agree with what you said about like the wild Pokemon and whatnot in general. They don't act naturally. It's the problem. They just sit around. They walk in circles until you run into them. And I'm with you. I think that it gets dull when the only interaction you have is either you throw your Pokemon at them and battle them, which there's no incentive to do so, or you catch them.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's literally it. I think.
And like,
Go ahead.
sorry, no, I was just gonna go off a little bit because the most confusing thing I think I've ever seen in a Pokemon game, besides the Sword and Shield animation horror, that is like the legendaries just trying to turn around, was a Gyarados circling a waterfall in midair, just continuously. And my thoughts were, why is it just flying like that? And why is it alone? Why is it not closer to the waterfall, tending to Magikarp, or why is it not being more vicious? I didn't know.
Yeah, you'd like to see the Pokemon kind of imitate what we see animals do in nature and whatnot. Like, one thing that was always fascinating about, like, any game where you could encounter multiple Pokemon at the same time that had either Zangoose or Sir Viper in it, those Pokemon will straight up start squaring up on each other. And they'll take each other out. Like, why don't we see any of that? Like, see, like, maybe you got a Rhydon walking around, and he walks up on a Golem, and the Golem's like, this is my turf, F off. And then they just start squaring up on each other.
You
Like,
never
more
see
of
that,
that,
right?
Henry,
They
please.
never fight each
Or
other
like
in the
seeing
manga.
Stable and Carbon.
And it's like, the only thing that I thought was really interesting that I thought they tried to imitate nature a little bit is where they have this this Ursaring surrounded by a bunch of Teddy Ursa. And like if you get spotted by one of like the Teddy Ursas, the fucking Ursaring comes running kind of like a mother bear would for her cubs. That's legit the only instance of like the game acting anything out in terms of nature that I could think of off the top of my head. And like we need more of that. We need something like I think honestly speaking, and that's just the weakness of how open world Pokemon has been since, Let's Go. Like, or like just Pokemon in the overworld and whatnot. Let's Go, Sword and Shield and whatnot. Wild Pokemon just do not interact with each other. And I think fixing that would go a very long way for the series. I think, honestly, it would be the greatest evolution the series could possibly see.
Yeah.
But more on the scarce battles, right? Because like we had a brand new battle system with the quick and strong styles and whatnot, as well as some interesting mechanic changes with the frostbite and the rework sleep, right?
Dude, I hate battling so much in RCS. I'm glad they're scarce. As much as it sucks, I would hate to fight that often because the way damage calculation in that game works makes no sense.
It's kind of like a weird little amalgamation of like Gen 1 fucking EVs and some like other weird shit where it tries to be more like a normal RPG. And I feel like it doesn't quite work. Though I will say this, I feel like the one thing that bothers me most about Legends Arceus, because I know like you said you wanted the battles to be more scarce and whatnot. There are a couple of legitimately really good battles in the game. Like, straight up, I will die on the hill that the final battle with Volo into the Giratina is one of the most fun battles in the entire franchise. But, like, then you look at, like, the battles being scarce. The other 98% of battles are all terrible. It's just one really good battle at the very end, if that's it. So I love Legends Arceus. I put in like 100 hours into it. I think, even though like I view it as kind of like this is a beta, and this is what I think the series of the future should like kind of move in this direction, but obviously do it a lot better. Overall, it's just I still paid $60 for a game that felt like an unfinished product and whatnot. And it's just really just a testament to, Game Freak being locked into these very short, development and release cycles that for a franchise that is the world's, largest grossing media out there, we should all honestly just expect a lot better. And it's a shame that we can't because either the Pokemon company with the anime and the card game and its product all have to be released within, a certain time frame. The games also get trapped into that same time frame cycle, and it's very brutal.
Yep, because it's not about the games. The games are the vehicle for everything else. So now that you guys talked about Legends Arceus, really quick, what are y'all's thoughts, hopes, expectations for Scarlet and Violet when they come out in about 2 months' time?
Lumi, why don't you go and start us off?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm just hoping for a little more convenience because like they've done a good job, but just trying to get what team you're trying to do, be it moves, be it IVs, EVs, all that stuff. It's probably not going to happen, but that. In addition to just the fact that I want to see more natural occurrences within the game, a little less standing, just like to prove that hey, we actually were using Arceus as its base point, and we're not just like porting all of that over into this game. But on another note, I kind of want to ride the bandwagon Pokemon.
What's up?
I kind of want to ride like the bandwagon looking Pokemon, the engine thing.
Yeah.
Wait, that's a Pokemon? I thought that was just a car.
I think it's a Pokemon. I don't know. Pokemon's been posting a lot about it, so my assumption is that it's some sort of Pokemon. And if it is, I want to ride it.
If that's a Pokemon, I'm 100% with you. I want one too.
I want the bandwagon.
It might be. They haven't like confirmed it is right, but it's just like,
I
they're
don't
featuring
think-
this a
I've just seen
lot
a lot
in
of
that
images.
storyline.
Yeah, I've
Kinda
just been
reminds
seeing it a
me-
lot.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when they were talking heavily about Corviknights carrying around the cars and whatnot up until Sword and Shield's release. If that's a Pokemon, I actually legit want one. That's going to be crazy. Sam, what are your hopes?
I just hope it's not shallow. Like, I hope there's a lot of stuff to do, and it seems like there is. There's 3 different, story beats going on, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
And I do like the idea that you can experience things in a different way from your buddy, right? Like Sword and Shield, if you play through it, like really the only thing that changes is like how much time you spend in the wild area and how many raids you do as you play throughout. But otherwise, the progression through the game is very, very limited and gated and similar for everyone as far as your experience. So I'm excited for that to be just really varied because, it brings me back to Gen 1. Like, there's a lot of different ways you can beat that game. As simple as it is, I still appreciate the flexibility it gives you. So having a much more flexible campaign is really exciting. And I'm also just super excited about like all the new Pokemon and the Terrastall mechanic, having different typed versions of all my Pokemon. That's going to be a huge thing for people to hunt for. I think it's going to be really good. I think it'll at least be the best game on the Switch. I'd be very surprised if it's not better than everything else we've seen on it so far.
In terms of Pokemon specifically, yes.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget the multiplayer.
Yeah, in terms of Pokemon.
Yeah, but I would say best game on the Switch. Whoa, that is a prediction.
Yo, we'd be fighting.
I would say that means Game Freak got it together in like a real bad way. Man. So I feel like because Pokemon has successfully lowered my expectations so much that honestly, I would just be happy with a few things. Number one, if they bring over the way you could reteach your Pokemon moves in Legends Arceus to Scarlet and Violet, I think that would be, pretty huge. I think that was actually probably one of the best features that Legends Arceus introduced was the way that you could reteach your Pokemon moves that I already learned.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Another thing I would like to see is the reworked freeze into frostbite. I think that needs to stay because we need to have something that's similar to how burn affects physical attackers on the special attacking side. And
Yep.
I think that that's the buff that, ice type Pokemon really need overall.
And we should nerf freeze too.
Yeah, and yeah, freeze is also just it's literally reskinned sleep, except it's stupid and more dog shit because like it's attached to better moves like Blizzard and Ice Beam and
And
stuff
it's
Just
like
more
replace it with
RNG reliant.
yeah. So I think Frostbite being a special attacking equivalent of Burn would be, just the best possible timeline. Really, outside of that, this is my biggest hope for the game overall. Because one thing I really did enjoy about Sword and Shield was going on like raid lobbies with friends and whatnot. Especially like you go over to like a friend's house or like you get a group of friends or something, and you all raid the same dens together. I think that was a really good way for people to interact with one another in the community, and I felt like
Yeah.
that was a really good decision on Games Freak part to do something like that. I just want them to expand on it and make them feel more like boss battles, and less like just a repetitive thing you do over and over again to catch specific Pokemon you see in a den. So, for example, there were some events where some of the legendary Pokemon appeared in raid dens, kind of like Mewtwo or like stuff like that, where you legitimately had to strategize and build specific
Yeah,
teams
those
to
were
counter them.
hard, dude.
Yes,
I
I
remember trying
want
it.
more of that. Or something similar to what they did with the DLC with Max Raid Adventures, with the like cave and whatnot. That I want to see expansions on those ideas specifically. Because I think ultimately, they're not going to do the friendly thing where they're going to add more accessibility to competitive. They're not going to like add sliders to Pokemon for post game only or whatever for being easier to respec them or whatever. So at the very least, if you're not going to do anything for competitive Pokemon, then just make multiplayer casual Pokemon more expanded upon.
Yeah. And I mean, they have confirmed that you can play 4 people at once, I guess, in the same like map or world
Yeah, because
cooperatively. So
yeah,
hopefully they use that to kind of like, raids was just the beginning. Now you can do a whole bunch of other stuff together too.
yeah.
Yes.
I feel like, and if you want more of my thoughts, Slade, thoughts and Lumi's thoughts, we did an episode a while ago on that, but I feel like there's gonna be some weird Game Freak limitation or some stupid BS. But that's just
Yeah, we did talk about that quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, say if you're not initiated, our speculation was that when you get into a group of 4 people at one of those like little bus stops or whatever, then you're only going to be limited to a small area around that specific bus stop.
That's a
'Cause,
good read. That's a hard read.
Yeah,
because some of the screenshots for the 4-player from the website and a bunch of other people were noticed this as well. There weren't any Pokemon in the screenshots,
Yeah.
which was
There you
a
go.
little sus. But
I mean, that might be how they counteract limiting you is taking everything off screen. So it's more about just battling each other, doing whatever with your friends, exploring.
true.
And not only that, they also introduced a lot of elements like climbing the walls and stuff like that, more accessible. So I wonder if there's going to be anything to exploring at all. But judging from Legends Arceus, they still have a long ways to go before exploring becomes more meaningful.
Yep,
But
for sure.
yeah. Anyways, I think that's going to be it for this podcast, gentlemen. I appreciate you both coming. We'll start with Lumi first. Lumi, where can our fans find you?
Yeah, so you can typically find me over at Nin Heartless on Twitter. That's probably the best place you're going to be able to find me. I've not really posted hardly anything in forever, but you'll find me there. When I do, at least.
And Steeler, why don't you go ahead and plug everything for us because we know people would love to watch your content.
Oh, I appreciate that. Let's see. first of all, Mario Party TV. If you like Mario Party and you want to see 4 grown adult friends yell at each other over a stupid party game, check out Mario Party TV on Twitch and on YouTube, and Twitter. And then if you want to see me, right now I'm mainly playing Pokemon. I just beat Blue with a Nuzlocke, and now I'm actually using my Nuzlocked Pokemon to try and beat Pokemon Stadium. And my God, is that harder than I anticipated. So you can see me do that on Twitch at LEL_Steeler. And I'm also on Twitter and YouTube as well.
Yeah, I'll probably have some fancy like pop-up graphics somewhere there for you all.
Yeah, we'll also put
Fancy.
everything in the description too.
Yep,
So,
things will be in the description below, of course. You can find where me and Slade are on social media and all that good stuff. And yeah, this is quite an interesting podcast. We will be back with or this might be happening after we cover the week in gaming news that's coming up with potential Nintendo stuff. But yeah, this is
lots of Nintendo Direct rumors going on right now.
They're gonna do something, man. There's no way they won't.
we'll see. We'll see. Like Nintendo's been wild this year, so
Anyways, this has been Slade.
And this has been Byron. We will see you all later for more of that gaming news and fun gaming discussion. Bye-bye, everybody.